My name's Jean and I'm a tour guide in Liverpool. I run a company with my sister-in-law Rachel called Liverpool Famous Walking Tours, and we provide tours every single day on heritage, culture and the Beatles, as well as many bespoke tours. And we felt it was about time we did a tour for the LGBTQ plus community, explaining and telling you all about the history of LGBTQ plus in Liverpool. I feel that I'm best placed in the company to do this because I am a gay woman who kept her sexuality hidden until she was in her 40s. I actually got married, had a heterosexual marriage, and I had 3 wonderful boys. I was afraid to say who I was, be who I was, and since I've been doing this research, I'm grateful that has changed over these years, and just want to reflect that in the tour. And just to say that my youngest son is gay, and he met his partner at school, and this year we had a wonderful celebration of their love for each other, which shows how things have changed. This is what I wanted to show you on the tour. So if you walk this way with me, which is the title of the tour, we'll stop at some of the spots that are going to be included on the tour. Here at the World AIDS Day Memorial of 1993. We're going to talk more about the Georgian period and homosexuality, but this is quite poignant. I was a nurse in the 1980s when the AIDS epidemic hit, and it was so sad because young men who were suffering from the disease, who'd been shunned previously by their family, were finding themselves dying alone. Their partners weren't even allowed to visit them because they were told, "You're not next of kin." I recently watched the AIDS tapes on BBC and I found myself crying. There was a system that they had to put in place called a buddy system, and an elderly lady who'd lost her husband took on one of the men who were dying, and she was very emotional. It showed you pictures of him, and at the end she was crying, and she simply said, "I loved him," which is what his family didn't do. And how sad is that? And let's hope today that, you know, with the changes and lots of the people who have campaigned to be out there and to have people look upon us as normal, I think, you know, they are to be commended, and let's hope that people now can comfortably come out into their family without having to worry. We stopped here. The reason is because these were old Victorian toilets. Now obviously, because it was illegal for men to be together, they would have to find places for sex and for love and company. So the place to do it was the toilets. Now there was an artist, he's dead now, and his name was Fenkell Heather, I hope I've got that right, and he was a gay man in the 1930s, and he said in Princes Park area there were lots of these toilets. Now they called it cottaging. The main reason it was called cottaging was because a lot of these toilets looked like cottages, and so that was where the origin of the word was. So they would have come here, they would have met each other. Now the danger was that the police realised what was happening, so many of them they'd be set up here, whereby even the police even trapped them by saying, coming on to them, and then they were trapped, and then they would end up in prison. Obviously further back, you would, as I said to you, it became it was punishable by death until 1861, which I think is quite late. And I'll tell you a couple of stories about that later on, of men who were actually hanged for being homosexuals. From here, round by where the Royal Court is, was Queen Square. And this was a place that provided a safe haven, because places like the Stork Hotel and the Royal Court and a pub called the Magic Clock, the community could meet there safely and without worrying. And even though heterosexuals met there as well, they were sympathetic to them. There were also some Victorian toilets in that area, and I do believe that one of our famous actors, called Sir John Gielgud, and Alec Guinness, were actually pursued by the police, and they were outed, particularly Sir John Gielgud, who was outed. It was put across all the newspapers, but the sympathetic Liverpudlians, when he arrived to play Richard III at the Playhouse, they all stood up and applauded him. So even back in the 1950s and 60s, there were people sympathetic to our cause. We've stopped here because I want to tell you the story about 2 men who were obviously gay, but in the early 20th century that was not possible. So they actually lived together, but in Kuala Lumpur. But the Herbert Christopher Robinson, was an associate here, worked as a volunteer. And then he went to Kuala Lumpur, where he met his partner, who was Slaus Bowden. Now, it wasn't until their death that you realised, probably, that they were together, because they used certain euphemisms, things like he never married, or he was shy and retiring. Shy and retiring, and he was not a knowable man. So this just gives you an indication of how difficult it was back in the day. They found ways to do it, but it must have been extremely stressful. So here we are, back in the Georgian period of time, late 1700s, early 1800s, when it was very difficult for homosexuals to meet each other. In 1806, there was a trial across Manchester and Warrington and Lancashire, and they tried several men between the ages of 17 and 84. 3 of them were eventually convicted of serious crime and were hanged. And afterwards, they realised how prolific the homosexuality was, particularly in Liverpool. So they interviewed a man, decided to do some research, and they interviewed a man called Thomas Ricks. And he said that in Liverpool was rife. It was quite prolific, and there were certain places that they used to go. So they used to go on the streets, they'd find each other on the streets, in the pubs and in the taverns. He then talked about a widow woman who had a tavern in this street, Truman Street, and she would provide a safe haven for men. He said he met many, many men of different classes here in Truman Street in the tavern. This has really been a very little snapshot of what the tour is going to be about. And we've started in the 18th century right up to the present day. Many, many things unfolded in that time, where the homosexual LGBTQ plus community have now have a proud place in society. And when Pride, every year of Pride, we have all the department stores, restaurants, hotels, all proclaiming that they are friendly towards LGBTQ+. We stopped here because this is where Garland's used to be. The entertainment world changed drastically. This area became the gay quarter, and we had the first rainbow signs, even though Manchester had the first gay village. It's a wonderful thing now that this has happened. I want people to come on the tour, and we can have discussions. We can see how the city has changed in the past. And I just want to finish off by giving you a few Liverpool LGBT facts and figures. So, we had the first Liverpool-born April Ashley was Britain's first transsexual. The first ever lesbian kiss on UK television was a BBC drama called Girl, and the 2 characters were Alison Steadman, born in Liverpool, and Maya Francis. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, a pop group, were the first fronted by openly gay band members Holly Johnson and Paul Rutherford. Liverpool-based soap opera Brookside had the first openly gay character on British TV, and then in 1994 the first broadcast pre-Watershed lesbian kiss. Angela Eagle was the first openly gay MP. Wallasey-born Caroline Page became the first openly serving transgender officer in the BBC Armed Services, and we had the first gay wedding broadcast in Liverpool's Albert Dock on This Morning in 2001. Liverpool Register Office became the UK's first to include a gay couple on the front cover of the official civil ceremony promotional material. We also had the first openly gay Lord Mayor in Gary Miller. Liverpool was the first city to recognise a gay quarter with rainbow streets. So as you can see, we've come a long way, and it's only about time that somebody did a tour of Liverpool and showed you the history of LGBTQ+.